Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat teaching with TBA Rabbinic Intern, Aviva Frank.
Shalom, and welcome to our Torah study, or actually our Mishnah study, our oral Torah, for this afternoon, our Sudat Shlishit. And it's pretty incredible that we have reached the last chapter of Pirkei Avot. We've been on a journey together studying Pirkei Avot, the entire Jewish people, and also here at many of the Sudat Shlishits, for the time period between Pesach and Shavuot in preparation of the anniversary of the giving of the Torah. It's like we're physically climbing the mountain through our Torah study, metaphorically. So it's been a good exercise that we've had. You know, maybe you also want to climb Running Kinyan in preparation for Shavuot, but it's pretty amazing what we've been doing, toiling in our Torah. And also, oral Torah is really important that we're studying in preparation, because it's just as important and valid. And there's a reason why the rabbis decided that we should really study Pirkei Avot or Mishnah during this time period, to really let it be known that they have the same weight, the written Torah and the oral Torah, the spoken Torah. And there's a little paragraph here if someone wants to read it about this. If I have any volunteers.
The top one?
Yeah, the top paragraph.
Okay. The first 5 chapters of Pirkei Avot come from the Mishnah, or the spoken Torah, and highlight how our pre-Shavuot study preparations for the anniversary of receiving the Torah should include both the written and the oral Torah. The rabbis wanted to highlight the distinction between Rabbinic Judaism and the Karaites. This sixth chapter is an addendum to the original 5, to allow for 6 chapters of study during the 6 Shabbatot between Pesach and Shavuot. This chapter highlights the merits of Torah study.
Beautiful reading, and also beautiful aliyah that you had today at the Torah. It was your second aliyah, right? Yeah. Amazing. Great job. So there's 5 chapters in Pirkei Avot. So the rabbis are like, that's great. We're going to make sure that we study the spoken oral Torah during this time period of the counting of the Omer with these 5 chapters. So what do we do? There are 6 Shabbats. So they had to create an addendum, or this chapter, to make it work, and work it did. And it's pretty amazing because it shows the merits of why Torah study is important. So we might be thinking, I've been counting up, and now I have to study Torah all night. Why am I doing all this? And then we come here to chapter 6, and it lets us know what are all the benefits we have of Torah study, and how does it really make us a better person, or refine us in the world, and how that ties in nicely through the counting of the Omer that we've been counting up. It's like we're unlocking a gate each day, 49 gates. So Torah study can be like that key to unlock the gate in preparation for the 50th or Shavuot. So for the first box, it's from Mishnah 6, chapter 6, Mishnah 6 of Pirkei Avot. If someone wants, beforehand, actually an activity. Okay, great. Wait 1 second. I want to do a little activity. I think you guys are all ready for this. You guys all seem like a group that likes to jump in and participate. So you're going to have a chavruta. You're going to find someone sitting next to you. And I want you to read through this list together. Now, it would be great if there were 49 things here, but there isn't. There's only 48. So maybe you want to think of what is your own 49th. And I want you to think of what are your top 3. So on this list, it's all about what is needed to be connected to Torah study. Like, how does it refine you? What is needed to either be a good Torah scholar, or studying Torah makes you have better merits or characteristics? So I want to hear some conversation, discussion. Find your top 3, and what would be your 49th? What would be the one you would add? Remember, you're picking your top 3. It doesn't have to be the same as your chavruta. You can let them know why those top 3 are important to you. And you're also thinking of what would be your 49th. So greater is learning Torah than the priesthood, and then royalty. For royalty is acquired by 30 stages, and the priesthood by 24, but Torah is by 48. So, Liao, I'm going to read through the list, and when I say what is one of your top 3, I want you to raise your hand, and let's just see how much overlap we have in this room of which of the 48 items on the list resonate the most with each of us. Okay? By study.
Let's go to 48. Part of what they're doing with 48 is that.
We'll get there. We're going to get there. Okay. So by study, who was by study was one of their top 3? Attentive listening. Great. Proper speech. By an understanding heart. By an intelligent heart. Great. By awe. By fear. By humility. By joy. Aww. Yay, by joy. Why is joy important? Why is joy important?
Good.
Good. Great job. And is that bagel good too?
Yeah.
Does that bagel bring you joy?
Yeah.
Amazing. See, joy is in the form of a bagel too. Okay, by attending to the sages. By critical give and take with friends. Yeah? Okay, great. Why? Why do you think that?
So it helps build the relationship and strengthen it because it's going both ways. So reaffirming the sharing of listening and advice or whatever it is.
Beautiful. And I think that's why chavruta is so important. You have a study partner. You don't always agree with your study partner. Like I said, you don't have to, even right now, have the same top 3. But by talking it out and discussing it, the relationship is built and strengthened, and there's mutual respect and care. Beautiful. Great. You guys, I can tell we're a great chavruta together. You both are smiling. That's fantastic.
Discussing it with friends keeps Torah alive.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's so beautiful. Yeah, why'd you pick that one?
Because I have a best friend, and I'm always there for him, and always giving him support. And even if he's having trouble with something, I'm always there for him, no matter what.
Beautiful. Thank you. That is so beautiful. See, so this is we need to have these abilities to acquire Torah. Maybe through Torah we actually refine this ability in us to be a better friend and listener. And sounds like you really have that great skill set for your friends. It's beautiful. Care about all of our relationships. Okay, by fine argumentation with disciples, by clear thinking, by study of scripture, by study of Mishnah. Oh, wow, we're studying Mishnah and there's crickets in the room. By a minimum of sleep. I know someone here was like, I don't like it. Oh. Wait, you don't like any of them? Begin with anything that says by a minimum.
Right. I don't agree with a minimum of sleep, a minimum of chatter, a minimum of pleasure, a minimum of frivolity, and a minimum of preoccupation with worldly matters. I don't agree with any of that because I think all of those things detract. I think, come on, you know what a minimum of sleep does. You don't even want to be studying it. How can you absorb it? You don't even. No, I think if you're going to study the Torah at all, it means a lot when you do bring worldly matters into it.
Okay, so by studying Torah should bring in worldly matters. And if we don't have enough sleep, how are we awake enough to even study? Even with all the coffee, are we going to be awake enough? But I'm going to review this again and see what other people think about this, if it was in their top 3, if they have insights on it. So by minimum of sleep, and what is the minimum of sleep? Is that 6 hours or is it 3?
No, there was an image of in religiosity of the Masmid, the one who constantly studied, and in fact you have poems written about the guy who put his feet in water so it could continue staying awake. You have the same legend in great scholars who spent day and night studying, etc., etc. The joke, one of the great scholars of Judaica, Harry Austin Wolfson, was rumored to have left the library once at Harvard, and nobody else saw him anywhere else, with the exception of when he taught his classes. So, certain things, I don't recommend a minimum of sleep. My doctor certainly would not recommend a minimum of sleep. But in people who are absolutely, completely enveloped, dedicated, et cetera, the legendary characters become those who minimize their sleep, certainly minimize their frivolity, certainly minimize what they do in worldly matters, and they spend their life in study. May not be a choice for many, but certainly for some of the greatest scholars in history, it has always been that choice.
Well said, Rabbi. About if we get involved in too many other external factors, it detracts from our Torah study, and it's good to be consumed and immersed in Torah study, even if it might not seem always that someone can study all day in a kollel. What does it mean that we still set our compass or to that direction of north? And before coffee, or even if coffee when it was still expensive, people would have a bowl of cold water underneath their desk when they were studying and put their feet in it. Ice cold water or from snow that was melted to keep them awake. We're just gonna move on. I'm gonna read through and then we'll take some additional comments. By minimum of chatter. Yeah? Herb over here says he needs to work on it. Our great organizer.
I don't know. I just liked it because I tend to chatter too much. So then you kind of just go on it. If somebody's listening, you just go on and on. You're kind of wasting time, and it could lead to lashon hara maybe, or.
I love your honesty.
Yeah.
I love your honesty and self-awareness that you have as you've cultivated this through the county of the Omer to really get that refinement. And I think it, okay. So when you saw it here is when you realized about that.
Yeah, it's something I know.
Yeah.
So it's just.
Well, I think it connects so well, and it connects so well what you said before. If you have a chavruta partner study Torah with, and you share with, it kind of gives parameters around the chatter, right? You can still have connection and communication and share what's on your heart and your mind, but then it has a parameter framework so that it doesn't just maybe become something that you're venting, or God forbid, as lashon hara. So that's beautiful how they connect.
I like that idea of a chavrusa and Torah study.
Wow. All right, I'm going to continue on through the list. By minimum of pleasure, by minimum of frivolity. And now, anyone have any thoughts on these before we move on? Okay, by minimum preoccupation with worldly matters. By long suffering. I have a question of why about long suffering? Isn't our goal not to suffer in the world? But we also have joy on here. Doesn't that seem counterintuitive or at odds with one another?
We now have it with a newly awarded doctorate, but all the doctoral students always talk about their long-suffering struggle to get finished with a dissertation. A book, you work, and you get it through. Certain things take enormous amount of labor. It's not needless suffering, but you push through, right?
Right. Beautiful.
How many doctoral students talk about their
Yeah. Sorry, we're not going to have time right now. Right. PhD student over here, right? Is it a lot of suffering to get through? Sometimes. Yeah? You want to share with that? Okay, and so we can see if we go to the line below, it says by acceptance of suffering. So maybe there's something connected to that. And its learning of Torah is also acquired by one. So every morning when we, in the morning blessings of Shachrit, we say Lasok b'divrei Torah, to toil or busy ourselves in the study of Torah. And the way of toiling, it implies we're shoveling up the dirt. And so in that there is this hard work. So maybe it's not to suffer the sake of suffering, but there's something in there about hard work for an end goal, something that isn't quickly achieved, but we put in the long effort of it and the acceptance of it. And it could also be somehow about in life, sometimes there is grief and sometimes there is even illness. But how do we still remain true to ourselves even when we're not feeling well. So I know, for example, it's very easy for me to be very joyful and a good spirit, but if I know I have a cold, I'm a little grumpy. So how do I actually, how could Torah study help me handle those moments when I don't feel well to still show up in the world in a proper way and as true to myself? And how can that also, through learning, even if I am sometimes grumpy, if I can still be kind to others, does it make me a better Torah scholar? So the chicken or the egg, what happens first? I'm going to go through these and just have people raise their hand for the sake of time. And at the end, if people want to share, we'll have more time. So who recognizes their place? Who rejoices in their portion?
Again, these are coming back to other Mishnayot that were earlier in Pirkei Avot. Who is a rich person? One who is satisfied with their portion. One who's happy with their portion. So this is to make sure that you studied the previous ones and you understand what they're referencing. So it's both a repeat and also a question of value.
Beautiful. Question of value and a repeat, and also like the cliff notes. Also kind of a summary of all the previous Mishnayot of like what makes someone wise and a good scholar. So I'm going to go through the list again. Please don't forget to keep raising your hand. So who rejoices in their portion? Anyone connect to that? Once again, these are the 48 ways that we receive Torah. Good. There's people that rejoice in their portion. Who makes offense about their words? Who takes no credit for themselves? Who is loved? Who loves God? Beautiful. I see a lot of hands being raised. Who loves their fellow creatures? Oh, a lot of hands here. Great. Oh, environmentalist. I love it. Who loves righteous ways? Who loves reproof? Oh, there's hand over here. Will you share at the end more about that? Who loves uprightness? Who keeps themselves far from honors? Who does not let their heart become swelled on account of their learning? That's a good one, I think, right? It's very easy to sometimes with acquiring Torah study to actually feel more boisterous and less humble when we hope that our Torah study gives us a humble heart. Who does not delight in giving legal decisions? Does that seem like almost the opposite? We know so many Jewish lawyers, right? Who shares in the bearing of a burden with their colleague? Who judges with the scales weighted in their favor? Yeah. Who leads him on to truth? Who leads him on to peace? Who composes himself at his study? Who asks and answers? Who listens to others and themselves and adds to their knowledge? Who learns in order to teach? Who learns in order to practice? Definitely over here. We heard from Herb. Who makes his teacher wiser? Who is exact in what they have learned? And who says the thing in the name of who it is said? And so I just want to highlight here about how do we hear from, like, we know this from Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. One of the reasons, so from Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, going back about who basically shares who judges in scales and weighted of their favor of their colleague. So one reason we've heard that why we will follow more frequently the Hillel house, the Beit Hillel versus Beit Shammai, is because they would first list the viewpoint of Shammai before they would list their own. So we can think about how do we show respect and honor to our colleagues. And we have some insights here around footnotes and also about how do we say that this so-and-so's name, and also about, I think you wanted to share also about Esther chapter 2, verse 22.
Well, because Esther said that Mordechai had told about the plot against the king. Several chapters later, that becomes the moment when the king could not sleep. He read, he had the chronicles of the country read to him, which put him to sleep. As he read to him, he realized that Mordechai had saved his life, and he said, how do we honor Mordechai? Haman thought, it's wonderful play. Haman thought that who would the king want to honor more than me? And Haman said, I would have him ride through the center of town on a horse that the king has ridden on and wearing the clothes that the king has worn. And I would say, Kacha yaseh laish asher hamelech chafetz bikaro. This is what the king does. This is what will be done to a person that the king wants to honor. And then Haman ends up being the guy who walks the horse through. And he had planned, according to the Midrash, he had planned to have garbage thrown on Mordechai because Mordechai was going to do this. And he comes back defeated. And that's the moment, that's the denouement, the moment where everything turns bad for Haman. And and all of that is because credit has given. And we just saw this week a major paper on healthcare was given with false citations of of papers that had never been written. And you have to be very careful, ladies and gentlemen, as you use AI, that it doesn't invent the material, because it's clear that they used AI and invented papers that had never been written by scholars who had never written them, and the like. And the problem with AI is if you feed junk in, since it depends on the accumulation of knowledge and has not yet been able to weigh all knowledge, if you feed junk into the system, you corrupt it. And consequently, they had to withdraw the paper, much to their embarrassment, and the like. So this is an argument for footnotes.
Is that maybe your 49th that you would add, the required by Torah, is to make sure when you are giving footnotes and credit to someone that it actually does exist, it's not AI. There also was an article that came out about great books to read, and half the list of books were never written. They were fake titles and with fake authors. They might be the greatest books to read because they're, you can read them in a hot second. Okay, we have 30 seconds.
Okay, I want to make a comment on who does not let his heart become swelled on account of his learning. I don't know if you could substitute heart for head, but in addition to healthcare, something that's been in the news lately is Harvard University. And I really don't believe the goal of any education system is to turn us into a bunch of snobs. I mean, I don't see any evidence that if you graduated from the University of Nebraska, that you're necessarily inferior to somebody that graduated from Harvard. I really don't see any evidence of that. And I get very concerned when education is tied to snobbery. I do.
No, thank you. I think you said that so great, because some people have opportunities to go to certain schools. Some people can't. They have to work 2 jobs for their families. So when some of the wisest people I've met are people that have been janitors at places I've worked, or they have been bus drivers. They've shared with me information that has changed my life, and I have incredible deep knowledge. So these were 48 attributes that are needed to acquire Torah. And I said that I believe also these 48, if you strive towards them, can also allow you to be better Torah scholars. And I asked you to think of a 49th, because we have 49 days that we count the Omer. So does anyone want to share what their 49th would be, in addition to making sure footnotes are not from AI or giving credit to an AI-generated book? Anyone else have something they'd want to share? What would be their 49th? What's an additional characteristic that is needed to acquire Torah, or that you think through Torah study it refines you or allows you to have attributes that are similar to this list? Okay, we'll come back to it. Yeah.
I think you need a combination of audacity and humility.
Audacity and humility.
The reason you need audacity is because you have to believe that you can master something and that you can get a hold of it, understand it, and the like, but you have to have humility to balance your audacity. And if you don't have both, you can't quite acquire it. Otherwise, you would say, if Torah is the word of God, who am I to understand God's word? and consequently you need a little bit of audacity and chutzpah to try to understand, and that has to be balanced by humility, because however much you know, there is something you will not know.
There's always still more to learn. That's beautiful. Audacity and humility. And I think those are two values that we can really take with us into the all-night learning that we're going to have on Shavuot tomorrow evening, when we hear from such wonderful speakers and study Torah together.
Yeah, just playing off of that, I think it is important to know what you don't know. And I'm a master at not knowing.
Irv, our resident prophet. Okay, so I just want us to look at number 2 really quick, and then you can take... So we have, why would the rabbis want to go head-to-head against royalty and the priestly class? I think that's important to think about. So we're in the week of Malchut in the Omer. Malchut can be translated as king or queen, royalty, sovereignty, royal leader. So why do you think maybe the rabbis here? Because in the list it says greater is learning Torah than the priesthood, and then royalty. So why here do we think maybe the rabbis would have a list like this? Does anyone know about the Pharisees or the Sadducees? And it connects into the next piece of Mishnah we're going to look at. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the rabbis sort of going against the priestly class is somewhat appropriate, because the Torah doesn't just belong to one class of Jew, it belongs to every type of Jew. And when you have this sort of sense of superiority that being named a priest because you happen to come from a particular line, and when you have that type of big-headedness, you get a Korach situation. And you don't want to have a Korach situation. You don't want to have this kind of fracturing. So what the word that's used is hakhuna, the priesthood, but it might as well be elitism. And I think similarly with royalty, the idea that one person, supposedly divinely appointed, gets to rule over everyone else. Well, there are different kingdoms, and I think that also sort of goes against the idea of there being like a temple in one particular strand of royalty.
Beautiful. Thank you. Very well said, future Rabbi Brian. So we can see here that as we're heading into Shabbat, that we all are able to study all night, no matter if we've already grew up going to Jewish day school or went to summer camp or are currently enrolled in a rabbinical school or a PhD program. Everyone is welcome to come and learn as we see this. And we'll also see that when we just started in the book of Bamidbar, there's many different examples of leadership. And you mentioned Korach, and about how Korach did come from the class that had an active role in the Mishkan, but still, or in the tabernacle, wanted a bigger role. And so in the book of Bamidbar, we also, in what we just had read last Shabbat, or this morning, because we just already have now at Sudat Shlishit read as a preview for the coming attraction of the next Parsha, was about that the sense is that many people were counted, all the tribes were counted, everyone was important to God to be counted, just as we've been counted each days. We count things when they're important to us. So I think the rabbis here, as you said so well, are trying to distinction that maybe there's only one king or one queen. There's only you have to be born into the priesthood, but everyone here can become engaged in Torah. If there is a rabbi or a Torah scholar, Torah education is so important. I think also it is important to mention around sovereignty is that when the Mishnah was codified, the Jewish people didn't have sovereignty. They were under the Roman Empire. There no longer was a temple, so there no longer was a king or queen. There no longer was a priestly class. And so how could they evolve and transition with the times? That Torah study is something we can put in our backpack, in our talis bag, and take with us wherever we go. And I just want to leave those thoughts with you as we enter into the final. We're going to do Mari, then enter into the final day of the counting of the Omer, and then to Shavuot, of how Torah study is available to all of us, and thinking about these 48 and your own 49th one of what is important for you to be a good Torah scholar.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.